Welcome to this Killick Explains video, and welcome to the results of one of my Twitter and LinkedIn polls. And this time what I wanted to find out was, what do people put top if they can choose one thing of their life is too short list? We've all just come through a pandemic. Thank goodness we seem to be heading out the other side of it. And a lot of people have focused on exactly what they want to do with their time and of course their money. So here are the results, and then I'll just talk through one or two of them. So I offered on the top of my life is too short list, upgrading my assets. Now assets could include property, could include cars for example, and that attracted 7% of the votes. And I'll come back to that vote in a moment. Next up was taking longer holidays. And that, for people who think that's their number one priority, was 32% of respondents, so quite a chunk, nearly a third. However, it wasn't the most popular answer. That went to stopping work, or presumably stopping work as soon as possible. That attracted 51% of the total votes. And then finally, enjoying more and more regular treats picked up 10% of the total votes. So there you have it, 4 options, and you can only choose one and put it top. So let's just talk about these in turn, and I'm going to structure this as kind of, pros, do I agree with that selection, and some of the cons, some of the things to just think about before you put that right at the top of your priority list. Now there's no right answer to the question, of course, but let's go through it and pick off that top answer, the 51% retire early in particular. So upgrading assets, whether that be moving to a bigger house, buying a new car, depending on what you can afford, buying new boats, who knows, but upgrading assets anyway. What are the pros of doing that? Well, of course, assets do bring a certain amount of status with them. They bring enjoyment with them, of course. A faster car, a bigger car, so practical enjoyment as well as pure hedonistic enjoyment. And there's the sort of keeping up with the Joneses aspect. It's satisfying to be able to say, yes, I'm doing well, and here is the proof, if you like. And if you're able to share those assets with friends, family, and so on, so much the better. But there are a few downsides. So I'm not surprised that only 7% of people put that as number one. And bear in mind, you can only choose one answer. Some psychologists have shown that upgrading assets only really gives a sort of temporary boost. You get what's called buyer's remorse after a while, where you think, I should be enjoying this more than I actually am. And that's because your brain adapts to having the new asset in your life. You quickly get used to the bigger house, the faster car, whatever it might be. So there's that. Then there's the fact that once you've got a bigger asset, do you then want another bigger asset? So there's the kind of, where does it ever end? What's the right size of large house to own, for example? How fast does a car need to be? So there's that kind of, am I at the end of the journey or still on it kind of mindset. And then there's fear of missing out, of course. If you are focused too heavily on assets, as soon as you see something you want, a shiny thing, you might be tempted to go after it at the expense of other things. And that's the point. Obviously, you can afford big assets, and that's your thing, we'll go for it. But maybe you're sacrificing other things in the process because you've only got so much money to commit to these things. So choice number 2 was longer holidays. So there are people out there, around a third of people who answered my poll, who said, actually, Tim, that's where I'd like to prioritise my spending and my time. And yes, on the pros, pretty obvious really, relaxing, taking time out of work is fantastic, spending it with family and friends, exploring the world, unlocking from that pandemic phase where we couldn't go anywhere, yeah, why not? However, on the flip side, people who say, you should aim for longer holidays, it may not be practical. There may be all sorts of restrictions, whether it's looking after older parents, young children, and it can be quite expensive. Maybe your employer is not so keen on the idea of longer holidays as you are, and these things do cost money, especially now that everyone's competing to get out there and start spending again. So, yeah, understand why a third of people went for that answer, but I also understand why some people didn't. Now the top answer, on which I've done other videos, was I want to retire early. I want to escape from work. I want more freedom. I want less stress. I want the ability to choose how I spend my time? And of course, that's got to be a tempting answer, particularly for those people who are being sort of dragged back to the office 5 days a week, having maybe enjoyed for the first time in their careers, in some cases, the flexibility of a kind of hybrid model, or even working from home the whole time. Easy to see why short term people might think, yes, that's the route, freedom, less stress, less commuting, and all the rest of it. However, I would just say that once you get over the hurdle of, I really don't enjoy commuting much, I mean, who does? It is worth sitting down and saying, what am I prepared to sacrifice to give up work early? Because actually my video on financial independence, retiring early, FIRE as it's known, suggests that actually some people do get quite a lot out of work in status and in social terms and in emotional terms and so on. Quite a lot of people do enjoy gathering in an office and almost have forgotten that aspect of working together. And optionality is the key. Is it really right to sacrifice spending in the short term, sacrifice holidays in the short term, enjoyment and treats just to hit a I want to give up work target? Or is there another way to do it? Could you go part-time? Could you set up your own business, for example? Could you look to scale down work at some point in the future? So all of that is really worth discussing. Well, I'm not surprised, around 50% of people thought, let's try and secure the point where I basically don't have to go to work, but I might choose to keep doing so. And then we come to more treats. Now only 10% of people put this top of their list, but actually quite a few studies have shown that little and often is the key to enjoying time and money. Those people who enjoy fast cars may not agree, and if you can afford to do both, brilliant. What I mean is those treats, those extra meals out, those extra trips to the theatre, the sort of stuff, even shopping trips if that's your thing, the sort of thing that people have not been able to do during a pandemic and of course are now enjoying doing more of. But there is a way to do this, and there have been books written on this, and if you ping me an email at the end I'll be happy to send you more details on some of those books. But essentially there is a way to do it. Advantages of regular treats, especially if you've not had them the last couple of years, is the anticipation. In other words, it's something to look forward to, and that's important, particularly when we all work full-time, for example. It's doable. You're not looking at committing a huge amount of money, and there's less buyer's remorse as a rule of thumb. But it does require a bit of creativity, requires a bit of time, a bit of organisation, and it can also be costly. So what are the secrets, if you like, to regular treats and spending money well? And the answer is there are 4 rules of thumb, and I'll finish on this. Little and often, spread them out. Don't take my word for it. There have been studies done on the psychology of spending successfully, if you like. Book ahead. Give your brain something to look forward to. Spontaneity is good too, but anticipation is a big part of your mental wiring, if you like. Mix it up. Don't always book the same restaurant at the same time on the same evening. Some people like the regularity, but actually, again, studies show variety is the key to many things in life. And share them. It's been shown that people get more out of treats if they can share them with friends, family, and so on. So there you have it, quite an interesting poll. There's no right answer, as I mentioned at the start. What you put top of your life is to shortlist is very much down to you. If you'd like to watch some videos on some of the sort of science behind what I've just said, then you could try my library, killick.com/learn. And if you'd like copies of any of our guides, which give a few steers on things like building up a fund so you can stop work, generating an income once you have stopped work, what is the best way to go about scaling down work, and so on, then please do drop us an email, editor@killick.com, and we'll be happy to set up a digital version for you.